Welcome to episode 12.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Are you ready to plan your next vacation getaway? Then I recommend using 3D Travel Company. They are more powerful than pixie dust, more fantastic than flu powder, and they never charge a fee. Whether you're booking a Disney or Universal vacation, a relaxing cruise, or a luxury trip overseas, you'll experience concierge-level service unmatched by any agency. From the moment you submit a complimentary quote request or inquiry on their website at www.3dtravelcompany.com, you'll find out what it means to be pampered by the best in the business. That's 3, the letter D, travelcompany.com. And tell them Trenton sent you.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hello everyone, today's special guest is an audiobook narrator who has read over 600 plus titles and counting. He has also been the recipient of multiple Audio Awards, named one of the top 50 narrators of the 20th century, and has been the winner of over 20 earphone awards. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice? Today on the show we have Johnny Heller joining us. Johnny, thanks so much.
Pleasure to be here, Trenton. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. The very first thing that we always like to start off with, Johnny, is just getting to know who our guest is on the show. And would you just give us a brief story of who you are as an individual and who you are as an actor?
I guess they're entwined. I grew up in Chicago. I moved to New York City. I spent a little time in LA as an actor. I've always been an actor slash writer slash stand-up comedy. I made a living doing stand-up comedy for a while. Before I did all that, I was a newspaper reporter. So I do a lot of writing still. I found my niche in the voiceover market, and both in commercial voiceovers and in audiobooks, where I've really found my my claim to fame, my success area, I suppose. I attended bar, did everything. I mean, I spent 25, 30 years working very hard to become an overnight success. So it's nice in the last, I'd say 15, 20 years or more, to be nothing but acting for my principal income. Acting and, of course, coaching. I've been coaching for 30 years as well. So, is that what you want to know? Or is that I'll get more personal stuff later, I suppose.
No, absolutely. That's great, just kind of whatever you want to dive into and share with us. I know with all of the audiobooks that you've done, you also had the opportunity to be the narrator for MASH. How did that job come about?
Well, that was from Tantor. Here's the thing. In audiobooks now, I've done some 600 audiobooks. And sometimes you are simply saying, hey, Johnny, are you available in this time frame? We'll give you, and here's the book, and can you do it? Sometimes they'll say, we need author approval. As the market grows, sometimes you need author approval to do a given book. But Tantor, in their wonderful hearts, said this is a book Johnny should do. I tend to get a lot of I do a lot of noir detective stuff and a lot of comedy stuff. So it was right, and also there's a lot of British voices in MASH, which is interesting. And my family's all British and Irish, so I do that accent fairly well. So when it comes up, it was nice. It was great to do MASH. I was offered the job, and I said, of course. And one of the harder things to do, because everybody has seen MASH, either the film with Elliot Gould or the TV show. Everybody knows what radar sounds like, and they have their own ideas, and that's not what the author wrote. The film is closer to the book, and actually there are a series of MASH books. Probably, I think there may be as many as 9 or so as the doctors travel around. I think as MASH goes to Maine and MASH goes there. Once the author Richard Hooker realized he had a nice thing, he wrote a lot of books, but the main book MASH is their story in Korea. and people have their own take on how things should sound. So that's a little tricky because you want to, yeah, the important thing in audiobooks, the only thing in audiobooks, is being true to the author, sharing his truth with the listener. So I'm not going to do impersonations of the TV or film stars. I have to do the way the characters appear to me based on what the author's saying. So that's tricky. But I was honored to do the book, and I really think was very successful, and it was great. It was fun. I had a great time doing it. It's a funny book.
Absolutely. I noticed that you had done MASH, and I was like, wow, that was a big honor, I'm sure, for you to have gotten to play that role. And I know as well you also were able to play or to record the Huckleberry Finn story by Mark Twain. Now that was fascinating, the pieces that I got to hear of that.
That was a real joy. My friend Stephen J. Cohen has a company called Listen to a Book, and it's pretty much books in the public domain. And therefore, he's not a major publisher like Blackstone, like Tantor, like Penguin Random House. It's a smaller operator, so it's it's a royalty share deal. So the actor takes on a given job based on the hopes that he thinks he'll do a good enough job that the book will sell. And indeed, Mark Twain, Huck Finn, is doing well, and I got an award for it, and it was really great to do. I'd forgotten how good that book was because you read it. I know I read it in high school, and I probably read it again in college. I also forgot when I was doing the book, we had to discuss this, like how often and how to handle the N-word. And I say, I don't think it comes up that much. It's on every damn page. it's everywhere. And the only way to deal with it is just do it. Just say it. You can't. It's not a judgment call by me. It's what Mark Twain wrote at the time. And once you get past the uncomfortableness of saying it and realize it's part of the story, and that's how folks talked in those days. It becomes almost a non-issue. But I did forget how frequently it was mentioned in there. But it was a real joy to do that.
That word, I'm sure, is a very time period piece kind of thing. So it's not set in that modern setting. So that's understandable. But, I'm sure it was difficult when you got to it to say it.
Yeah, well, to say it so many. I was thinking, how could I not have remembered all this? But yeah, it comes up quite. But it's a brilliant story. It's the American classic story. In all the different roles you get to play. I mean, the beauty of an audiobook, for me anyways, an actor, is to take on all the characters. I mean, in a fiction piece anyway, take on all the characters and create real lives and play everybody. It's an actor's dream, So it's just great fun when you get a good book with a great author and a decent actor. Hopefully, it can be a wonderful thing.
Absolutely, Johnny. So in the process of doing these audiobooks, is it just always you, or do you ever work with a cast of people that kind of do the audiobooks?
If it's a cast of people, it's not really an audiobook anymore. Then it's more like an audio theater piece or radio theater.
Okay.
It's not the same. Audiobooks, not quite by definition, but certainly by practice, are almost always a one-person affair.
Okay.
That is why, for younger or newer, not younger necessarily, but certainly newer actors or newer narrators trying to get into the business, remember when you start looking for work to do, you want to be taking books that match your gender. If it's a female protagonist, Johnny Heller shouldn't do that book. I need to pick books, and some people make them. It doesn't mean I can't play feminine characters in the book, but I shouldn't be doing the Hunger Games. That's not for me. And I think people sometimes. I coached a fella. He came in. He was an older actor, and he wanted to do audiobooks. And he had one of those old time 1930s radio voices. And he started reading a chapter from Eat, Pray, Love. And he starts reading. And I thought it's very funny because it's about a woman coming of age in Italy and having adventures of all kinds. And so he's reading it and reading with his voice as the heroine. And I said, wait, the heroine. And I said, this is a book. Can you hear the police sirens? I'm sorry, I can't fix that.
It's okay. It's all right.
I said, yes, that's where I live, man. So I said, can you? I said, there's a book with a female protagonist. He goes, yes, I realize that. Chapter 2. And he goes, so you have to understand that when you're doing, unless you're doing a nonfiction, the gender is not necessarily important, but certainly in fiction, the protagonist is the way to judge whether or not it's a book for a male or a female.
Okay.
And sometimes there are books that are given out I'm doing one now with my friend Rosemary Benson, and it's reminiscences of war from different people situated in Massachusetts. I'm doing all the male stories, short stories, like Johnny Hiller's memories of Korea and Trenton Larkin's memories of Vietnam or something. And you have 5 pages of your story and somebody else's 3. I'm doing the male roles and she's doing all the females. And that happens a lot in the book. That makes sense.
Well, that's very interesting because, I wasn't clear on audiobook being primarily just one actor versus a group being more of kind of a play of sorts versus just an audiobook with a narrator. So.
An audiobook is a single narrator.
Well, that's very fascinating. Thank you for enlightening us. So, Johnny, as far as audiobooks go, what would you say was the most challenging project for you to work on and why?
I don't know about the most. There's a number that are challenging for different reasons, like, MASH for the reasons I stated. Sometimes if it's like a famous, I did Marley and Me. Sometimes people have, or even Huckleberry Finn, people have in their head what a book should, because they've read it. And when you sit and read a book, you sit in your lazy boy and you're reading the book, I promise that the different characters all sound different in your own head. And to make it a satisfying experience, I think you, the listener / reader, want the voices of the narrator to kind of match the ones you had. So that's always challenging. But I just did a book, a more recent book called The Truth About Death by Robert Halengra from Audible. And it's a series it's a 150-page novella and about 8 or 9 other short novels, all to do with the exciting and wonderful topic of death. It's not all dark, and there's some very funny bits, and it's kind of darkly humorous, black humor, if you will, dark humor. But this guy puts everybody, for some reason, everybody goes to Florence, Italy. Everybody. And while Joanna Perrin, my betrothed, if you will, is Sicilian and speaks fluent Italian, I speak Irish and English. I don't speak it. So I have to ask her, and there's huge sections, and Florentines don't speak like Sicilians, who don't speak like Romans, who don't speak like Neapolitans, you know what I mean? So you go listen, you hear somebody speaking Italian, everybody's the dialogues. I'm certain I'll get slammed on my hideous Italian, because in every other book, one of the hard things I get is, and this is a lesson for you out there, go study foreign languages. I speak a little Spanish. Spanish never seems to come up in my books. What comes up is French and Italian, especially French. And when I speak French, I begin sounding pretty much like Pepe Le Pew, and it quickly moves on into a Jewish deli owner. I don't know why. So my sister's fluent, so what I do is I send her, if it's a couple words, like beaucoup or something, you can do it, or the name of it, or the Louvre or some kind of crap, you can say it. But if it's a whole speech, I send it to my sister, and then she says it to me on the phone, and I record it, and I try and mimic all her Frenchness, because I can't. I have a lot of friends. I called Dion Graham once to say stuff with a Jamaican accent for me, because I couldn't seem to get it. So sometimes if there's a tricky accent you have to play, that can be a problem. But books in and of itself, unless it's a subject matter that's a problem, most aren't difficult. But usually the problem will come in more of a technical end, trying to grasp a language or a dialect, or sometimes, sorry to say, some books I just think they suck, and I can't let the listener know that's what I think. You can't finish your book saying, "Oh my God, he didn't like that book." I could tell. You can't have that. You have to believe that I loved, insert name of crappy book here, as much as Huckleberry Finn. So sometimes that's where the acting comes in too. Not my job to be the editor or the judge of the script. My job is to be the actor and share the script.
Absolutely. Well, Johnny, as far as, you've mentioned you've done 400 or 500 different audiobooks. How did you get to do such a numerous amount of audiobooks?
Let's go back to 600 anyway, but still, I started a number of years ago at a place called Recorded Books, and at the time it was a little easier to get in. A buddy of mine, Richard Ferrone, was working for them, and they needed a younger sounding voice who, they kind of wanted an immature adult to play all their kids, and there I was, because I'm not the most sophisticated man in the world. So I started doing, young adult and children stuff, and made a mark in that. Then they realized I could do detective fiction, and I started doing other things, started working for other companies and spreading my wings. And now I probably do, I'd say 80% of adult titles, not adult dirty, adult erotica, but adult titles. And the rest is children and young adult. But what happens is I've developed I entered the business and it was still fairly young, and I was still fairly young, and I grew with it. And now I think there is a perception among the publishers and casting people that I can play a myriad of things, that I can do fiction as well as nonfiction, that I can do serious as well as humorous. So I have the advantage, and it is an advantage, a huge advantage, and that I'm blessed with the fact that I came in at the right time, and I've had success in almost all genres, so that people think I can do all genres, and so I get work in all of them. I don't know if it can happen again as easily or as quickly as it did for me. I've been able to keep it going. So I'll tell you, I just did like, oh my God, 8 books just bam, bam, bam in a row, all completely different. And I actually love that. Sometimes I work on 2 books at a time, not simultaneously, but I'll work on remember the Night Stalker series on
Yeah.
TV? Okay, so I'm doing those books, the Kolchak books. I'm doing them right now.
Oh, wow, awesome.
It's a series. They're really, really great. They're so much fun. So I'm doing those for Blackstone, and while I'm doing those, I'm doing that Memory of War book I mentioned to you. In the middle of all that, I did Huckleberry Finn. I did that the Truth About Death book. There's a book about cat Carol Nelson Douglas writes a series about Louis the Cat, who's a cat in an alphabet soup, and I'm Louis the Cat. It's about a woman in Vegas who's a PR woman, and she gets involved in mysteries and crimes, and her cat gets involved too, and I'm the voice of the cat. So
Oh, wow.
I'm doing all those different things, and I kind of like it. So I'll come in the morning and do one series of books, and I'll take a break, have some lunch, come back and do a totally different book. And that I really enjoy that. Now, some people don't like that. They can't, they want to make that switch, but I rather enjoy it.
So do you kind of get to pick your own schedule, or does the studio set that up, or your agent, or?
No. If I'm hired to do, I did Patrick Kennedy's book, A Common Struggle, which was about his and his family's, the Kennedy family addictions and issues. Pardon me. And I went to the studio. If I'm booked in a studio, typically you get the book a couple weeks in advance, and they'll book you for a full week, like 9 to 5 in the studio, and that's what you do. If it's a book like most of the rest, I have what they call a whisper. I have a sound booth in my apartment, so I work here. So my schedule is my own. I know I get the book a week or 2 in advance of when I start schedule. I know the date it has to be turned in, and know how long it takes me to work, depending on what kind of book it is. So I schedule myself. I can work a few hours, go walk the dog, go to the gym, come back, do some more. So it's kind of my schedule.
Well, that's nice that you have that flexibility with those certain projects, you know?
Yeah. Well, Joanna's doing a 23-hour book right now, and she tends to be a night owl, so she works like till 2 or 3 in the morning. So I try and go to bed around 1 or 2, and I get up around 8, and I work in the morning while she's sleeping because there's only 1 booth and 2 actors. So that's the only schedule difficulty sometimes is that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we can work it out.
Well, as far as doing audiobooks, what other kind of voiceover projects have you done?
Outside of audiobooks, I've done lots of commercials, regional, local. I've done a lot of MC work at different functions and events. I started studying Shakespeare. I was going to be a Shakespearean actor on stage. My first union was a stage actors union, Equity. I got my card in Chicago in a Dickens A Christmas Carol. And then my first commercial job was for Campbell's Soup back in, I want to say it was 81, 82, I don't remember, Chicago. And as I recall, and I could be wrong, but the advertising people had gone to New York, LA, and Chicago to find the right voice. And I always tell the story because I still think it's hilarious, and it should have told me everything I needed to know about the business. The audition for this voice they needed to find was this. Here's what I did for the audition. Here's what I did in the commercial. I got the job. Here it is. Ready? That was it. So I said, "Are you kidding
Wow.
me?" So I'm thinking that. So right away I realized this is crazy. I mean, first off, some people didn't get the job. What did they do wrong? So it's crazy that I got hired to say that, but I made great money, and I said, well, clearly you have to be talented enough to secure an agent, but you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I don't know if I'm the best in the business, but you study Shakespeare, and then you get $300 a week. You say in a commercial, you make 15 grand. It's a crazy business.
I guess the world of voiceover is definitely a surprise at times then, huh?
Oh, there's video games, there's e-learning, there's telephony, they call it, there's corporate narration and other narratives. There's a million things. And I'll be honest, I could probably make more money in other facets, but I really enjoy audiobooks, and I don't have the time right now to pursue some of the other available opportunities. I intend to take some classes and study. I really think taking classes with good coaches is absolutely necessary to break in and to maintain your business.
Absolutely. So mentioning the training with, people that are specialists in the industry, what other kind of advice would you give to someone who might be interested in pursuing a voiceover career?
Understand a couple things. I have a blog. If you go to johnnyheller.com, you'll see my blog called For the Hell of It. And the most recent one, which is last week, I talk about the idea that everybody, when I'm on the road, I go on the road for Recorded Books, a company that publishes many audiobooks. And I'll talk to library groups, and I do excerpts from my work, and I speak, and it's pretty funny and good time. But invariably, 2 or 3 people go, everyone tells me I have a wonderful voice, and they want to know what to do with their wonderful voice. Because I speak English out loud for a living, everybody thinks they can do it, and that's just not true. It isn't. It's not just if you see a neurosurgeon, you don't say, "Oh my God, I have a scalpel at the house. I bet I know where the brain pan is. I could do that." That's not true. You need to get some training if you want to get into the voiceover business. Understand what different opportunities exist. Understand what sacrifices you are willing to make to pursue the career. Understand the prices of the equipment you may need and the time commitment you may need. Understand there's a million Facebook groups, so many. Follow people who will let you, friend me, friend Robert Fass, friend Scott, there's so many. Friend all kinds of people, if you can, or at least follow the groups that they're in, and you can just kind of lurk there for a while and see things. Don't ask questions. They've been asked 15 other times. Use the search function. This is like Audiobook Crowd. Go to that group and put in the search function best microphones or studio setup, and you'll find all kinds of stuff. There's no more giving, more willing to mentor group than those in the audiobook world that I can think of, or those in the voiceover world in general. So I think you should get some information first to see if it's really what you want, and then consider taking some classes. Now, if you live in Podunk and there's no teacher right there, you don't want to study audiobooks with someone who did an audiobook. You want somebody who's done 100 or 600 or 500, someone who knows what they're doing. So you can, like I work out of Edge Studios. Edge Studio, it's Skype if you want to Skype. Find someone to work with and spend a little money on some classes and some training. Understand the technique. If you do an audiobook, if you work right now, the issue is you not only have to deliver that story convincingly for the whole period of the book, which takes a lot of stamina, but you also have to figure out how to edit it, master it, how to send it, what to do. There's some technical things which you need to understand.
Yeah, so it goes beyond just, hey, I have a great voice. It has, you've got to have some of that technical know-how and the equipment to do it. So.
Well, the equipment you may need for home studio, the technical know-how enough to turn it on and use it, I advise actors to work on acting and let the technical people do the technical work that they're skilled at.
Well, Johnny, I know you'd kind of mentioned a website. Can you mention that website again? That way, if anyone was interested in contacting you or...
Oh, sure. It's cleverly named johnnyheller.com. So you can go right there and find it. It's JOHNNYHELLER.com. And there you'll see I've got all kinds of projects I'm working on and classes, or I do workshops regularly. I teach from Edge Studio. You can go to edgestudio.com and you'll find me and some other fine teachers and coaches in all facets of the industry. And that's national, maybe even international. You can Skype anywhere. I just directed a demo today for a fellow out in Phoenix. So, I wasn't in Phoenix, I'm in New York City. So there's all kinds of things. And I should say also that some of the workshops, every May is the APAC, which is the Audio Producers Association Convention. That's the group of publishers. And they have a big convention generally in New York City, end of May, beginning of June. And I have, for the last couple of years, put together the Johnny Heller Splendiferous Narrator Workshop, which started in New York 2 years ago with about 70 actors, about 9 coaches, working all day on panel discussions and one-on-one coaching. And last year, the convention was in Chicago. We had 120 workshop attendees, and this year I've made arrangements here and back in New York. I should have this. I'm planning for 150.
Wow.
And in October, the end of October, Joanna, my wife, Joanna Perrin, Stephen J. Cohen, a wonderful guy, and me are put together our heads, and we're going to have a narrator retreat in Rhode Island, October 28th through the 30th, which should be fabulous. It's a really nice, in a resort, kind of low-key, but a great time, good learning experience, relaxing experience, and that's coming up. So if you want information on that, that's on my website, or follow me on Facebook. I'm pretty active there. And I would suggest, if you're going to get in this business, to go ahead and be on social media, but be aware on social media that what you say lives forever. So if you're going to make political comments or any other comments, remember that that could positively or negatively impact your marketability. Just be aware of that.
Very good information. Thank you for sharing that with us, Johnny. I have a couple of questions and we will wrap this interview up, but what I want to know is, what is your favorite cartoon character and why, Johnny?
My favorite cartoon character? Stewie from my favorite comic book character is Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay.
Always was. I still have all the books. I just think they're brilliant. Just they're funny and they're wonderful. And my favorite cartoon series on TV, I guess, is I love Family Guy. Always have, just because it's really, sometimes it goes too far even for me. I like Bob's Burgers a lot. When I was a kid, I think when I was a little kid, I watched Mighty Mouse and Underdog. I don't remember much of the rest.
Mighty Mouse was one of my favorite.
Mighty Mouse, yeah, because he was just a little mouse, and he was like, I was and am kind of short, so I think he resonated with me. But I guess I watched it. I like Top Cat. I'm trying to think now. Who's the guy? Snagglepuss. I'm trying to. Chilly Willy. Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley.
Yeah.
I remember those guys. Chilly Willy.
Some of the classics.
They're all coming back. I don't know what's on there right now. I have no idea what cartoons are on anymore.
Well, it's like, what was your favorite cartoon necessarily, like from your past? And you've mentioned a lot of excellent ones, some of the classics that I grew up with too. So
I'm ancient, man, so I remember a lot of them, yeah.
Well, the last question I have for you today, Johnny, is what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
What an excellent question. In terms of what I want people to say about me, I want people to say, what a funny guy. What a shame that he rode that broken Ferris wheel. I think the legacy I want to leave behind is a person who sincerely cared about his craft and the people involved in the industry. I'm a union actor, and I think it's important to me. I reach out and try to mentor other actors. I think it's important I've had success. I've worked hard, and I've had some horrible experiences in my life, but looking back, I've been blessed with some real success and some real wonderful people who helped me, and I'd like my legacy to be a fellow who gave back, a fellow who cared, and someone who could be depended on.
Well, that's a most excellent word, Johnny. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today, and thank you so much for being on the show with us.
You are more than welcome, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, I definitely enjoyed our chat as well, Johnny. Would you please just give us a closeout today?
Thank you very much. You've been listening to Who Did That Voice with your host, Trenton Larkin. I'm Johnny Heller.
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Tune in next Friday to hear our special guest, Rodney Salisbury, who is an author, actor, voiceover artist, and voiceover coach. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, are you ready to win some awesome prizes? All you have to do is like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for your chance to be instantly and automatically entered for your chance to win.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.